Okay, whenever you guys see this go blank, just remind me to come over here and sweep it. Last class, we may have had an internet glitch, which caused me to lose that recording. Not that you guys count on it so much at all with my own classes. You've got access to me and so on. It's not as technical as DeJardin's stuff was earlier in the semester.
Should we remind you at a certain time before?
To hand out the exams? Yeah, you can do that, Raj. You can give me the...
How much time? I mean, just
like 3 minutes
okay.
before the end. All right, guys, let's get started. Today, developing hierarchy and social organization. We're really focusing on social. Coming to the quiz. You got the quiz coming. Oh, yeah. And Maddie here. Oh, you guys are so sweet.
Yeah, I won't pay attention to you.
I know. You better let me take him so he's not distracting you.
Keep it up. Shoot him.
He's not the watchdog type. He's everybody's friend. Come on. I will close the door.
Is the dog potty trained?
Pretty much. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out how.
Nope. Just walk around.
No. How to.
It's just him.
Here, Riley. Come over here. Come over here. Go.
I don't mind not taking up for a while.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I might just take him off the leash and see where he sits. But, he'll be all right.
Oh my God.
You just relax in here, okay? Yeah, just relax. Daddy's gonna lecture now. Okay. Okay, guys, so here we go. An agent-based model. You're gonna finally see the agent-based model that Gobert and I developed. So that's where we're headed. Okay. And we'll do our quiz first. Where'd you go?
Upstairs.
He's upstairs. Okay, everybody ready for the quiz? Here we go. Jeffrey West started his talk by saying something on the crucible of civilization. Okay. He soon says in his talk, it's harder to kill those things than kill a okay. He also talks about how complex phenomena are he showed a graph that demonstrated how pace of life is related to okay, and then last question. The main topic of Stuart Brand's talk was what? Okay, good. Fine, everybody turn it over. he started his talk by, yeah, we can start there. By saying, what was the crucible? Cities. Cities. He says it's harder to kill those than to kill a company. Companies die. He also talks about how complex phenomena are scalable. He showed a graph that demonstrated how pace of life is related to size. The main topic of Stuart Brand's talk was, sorry? Squatter cities.
What about people moving to cities?
Yeah, like going home country.
What's that?
People like moving into the cities.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That'd be fun. Good, guys. There we go. Don't bump her feet. Yes. All right. So, thoughts on Stuart Brand's talk? Any thoughts?
I didn't like his talk.
Yeah.
You didn't like his talk? Really? Why not?
I felt like he put it together last minute. There's like no statistics, no studies. He was like looking back at his own pictures, like, what did I put up there? Like, it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
His voice is dry and annoying.
Huh. His voice. Okay.
It's short, because that was a short one.
Yeah.
Kind of just made the claim that urbanization and smaller cities were good things without really giving us any reason why. They just kind of stated that it was a good thing.
Like anybody can say
just
that.
said it.
Do you see the relationship to sort of complexity? Sort of growth, sort of inevitable growth around things that are sort of more established and centered. Not by any sort of neat, tidy plan, but they're going to come, right, if there's enough attraction there. So it's organic, it's growth, it's a dimension to complexity. The topic of our article for Thursday, did you guys glimpse at that, right? It's music at the edge of chaos. It's written for a law journal, the Loyola Law Journal, not a particularly prestigious journal, but a decent, law journal, and using the complexity perspective to talk about file sharing. Y'all know file sharing, right? Do any of you use any file sharing kind of stuff?
Is it like Dropbox?
It can be, I guess, but no, that's more like sort of file storage in the cloud. File sharing could be like YouTube, where you put stuff up, you offer it up there, hey, I'm sharing it, and you're counting on other people sharing their stuff too. It used to be a big source of music.
Still is.
It still is, I'll bet, yeah. As opposed to paying for it, or somebody owns it. So they're going to use that as a sort of, she's going to explain sort of this untidy centralization of resources that is file sharing, and explain how we should accommodate them. Like Stuart Brand would talk about accommodating squatter cities. You can't ignore them. You can't demand that they not exist and stomp them out and expect not there to be repercussions. So, but her article is especially good for summarizing complexity theory and the concepts that you will want to use for your topics in your research papers. So it's really good for that. So, relish that opportunity to sort of, okay, I'm gonna, the introduction to her paper, this stuff that I'm reading, the first half of her paper, it's gonna sort of look like the first half of my paper. And then I'm gonna go into, you could do that, and then I'm gonna go into the sort of the topics or the applications in my particular application, my domain. All right, what about Jeffrey West's talk? Any thoughts on that? Do you like him any better?
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Brand, by the way, is a famous guy. He wrote the Whole Earth Catalog. He was the president of Indiana University. He's been the president of multiple foundations. And he's the founder of the Long Now Foundation, which gives high-quality talks from some of the best thinkers in the world on long-term thinking. The horizon is, I think, 1,000 years. So 1,000 years from now, what are the issues going to be? They're building a clock in Texas, in West Texas, that, or maybe it's 10,000 years, but it's not longer than that, that is designed to operate with accurate time, relatively accurate time, for 1,000 years. They're building up on top of a hill, and it will be in operation, mechanical clock. It's pretty cool. But a lot of good talks there that are accessible at the Long Now Foundation, just on a variety of topics. But big thinking is the theme. Anyway, so that's Stuart Brand, maybe in his defense a bit. But Jeffrey West, do you like his voice? His accent? He's got an accent. What did you think of the talk, though?
That was interesting when he talked about every major crisis that we reach, the way we beat it is by innovation, but we're going to have to accelerate our rate of innovation.
Yeah, we have to accelerate our rate of innovation to keep things from collapsing. That's one of the takeaways that I would have you guys note in your notes right now. Okay, as we're noting sort of patterns in complexity, patterns in hierarchy. Right, innovation has to happen at an increasing rate to prevent system collapse. Innovation has to happen at an increasing rate to prevent system collapse. Is there reason to think that it can happen at an increasing rate, or that it is less likely to happen at an increasing rate? Is there anything that's happening as complexity develops that would cause innovations to happen at an increasing rate? Anything that's sort of part of the development of complexity that is increasing, that would facilitate the rate of innovations?
More people.
More people? Okay.
Could be like increased resources and like education.
Increased resources, or greater development of resources, maybe a surplus of resources that you can use that way. You're accommodating your basic needs, but you're being able to do it that much more efficiently. Did you catch the efficiency of cities, by the way? We should note this. We should write down 15%. Remember? He said 15%. You have 15% more police, a whole lot of costs to cities when, don't chew on that there. 15% more costs for every doubling of a city. The city's population doubles, and the costs for maintenance go up 15%, not 100%, right? Only 15. So that's an economy of scale, right? It's an economy of scale. So that goes to Liz's point about having more resources. You have more stuff left over per person, right? I mean, you're saving resources. So you have a bigger surplus of resources. Okay, so greater surplus of resources would be another reason. Now, Arash mentioned population. What is different about, say, the population of, say, the 12 million people that occupy New York versus the 12 million people that occupy, just guessing, well, I don't know, what is Louisiana's population? Might be something like that. So what's the difference between the population of Louisiana and the population of New York?
Population density.
Population density. Now, would density help innovation?
You have more thinkers in a confined space.
Uh-huh.
You can facilitate the transfer of information faster.
Yep, the information happens faster. I can get back to you on that question. I gotta ask Morgan about that. I'll get back to you, Raquel. And yeah, okay, she just said as opposed to being spread all over, and it happens. Oh, thanks. Yeah. happens at a slower rate, right? So you have a faster rate of innovation, the greater the density that you have, and the density is going to increase in cities.
So would density increase information processing? Like if you have a greater
Yes.
population density?
Wouldn't it? Yeah, wouldn't it? Right. It would. Density would increase information processing power. Yeah. So innovations would increase, and he says that they have. And so Jeffrey West says, well, we have to innovate at a faster rate, but we have been doing that. And urbanization is why we've been doing that. It's a function of complexity. All right. Guys, I thought about this when he started off his talk. What is a crucible? He says, very first sentence out of his mouth. Cities are the crucible of civilization. You know what a crucible is, or one of the meanings, the meaning that he was referring to? You're not quite sure what a crucible is? I wasn't either, and so I looked it up. Very difficult to look it up. Oh, I went to the bookcase. Hell, I didn't do that. No, I didn't. What's the definition of crucible? Think. Oh. Right, and so there's our information processing power increasing, and our rates of innovation should increase, and so on. A place or situation in which different elements interact to produce something new. Cities? Cities are that? Why would cities be that?
I mean, they're forms for interaction, so constantly things
Yeah.
are interacting, influencing each other.
Yeah.
There's diversity of people.
Sorry?
There's diversity with your.
There's diversity of people. There's diversity of people, so different combinations can happen. Yeah, there's a greater likelihood that new combinations that hadn't happened before, at least that those people were aware of, are happening. Yeah. So there's diversity, and there's density and the chance to interact, to form for interaction. By the way, Maddie, and Liz, and well, shoot, all of y'all have probably heard me drone on about this. Yes, I know, all of y'all have heard me drone on about this, about how certain kinds of cities are less good at providing forums for interaction than other kinds of cities. Right? Certain kinds of cities, you don't get much of a chance to interact than other kinds of cities. Where, for example, you might run into somebody, you might bump into somebody, and you just happen to start talking. Maybe because you're walking a dog, and they like your dog, and they comment on your dog. But if you're not walking a dog, or even if you're not walking, you're more isolated, you don't have a chance to interact with them. You can be crossing people all the time in certain kinds of cities, and you don't really have a chance to interact with them. What kind of cities am I talking about? Where you're doing this, right? You're driving all the time. As opposed to cities where you're sitting with a whole bunch of other people on that subway car, right? Or you're walking, right, to the subway station, or you're walking to the bus stop around other people, right? And then you're sitting on the bus with other people. So we're, sorry, Wes?
Sounds awful.
Sounds awful. That's right. Oh, which one sounds awful, you iconoclast, you rebel?
The one with the people.
The one with the people? That's right. Wesley wants a cocoon, and we like our cocoons. That's right. I like being in my car alone, listening to the radio, etc. But it's not as good a form for interaction. It's also why Wes is alone, probably. The crucible of the new romantic movement was such and such, and that's how it's used. But okay, why cities? That's why, in terms of interaction possibilities. What else are crucibles for producing new things? Because they get a lot of different things in sort of density and dense spaces together, and new things are created. A lot of different things you pile together, and eventually it's going to produce new things. One way of looking at it. Got some, I'm thinking about trash, piling trash up, and the reactions that happen after a while. Compost, I'm thinking of. There are other things where you're piling stuff in. Stuff is coming together in greater density, greater concentrations, and reactions start to happen. And what's in common there? Well, it's that density and that sort of diversity and opportunity to interact. I'll note some of those things, okay? So it's in common. Okay, for every creative crucible, right? For every crucible that he's talking about, for everything like a city, why is it productive? Why is it stimulative for new things to emerge? Innovations that get taken on and are useful, right? So it's not just new stuff, you know, but it's new stuff that's taken on and emerges, takes on a life of its own, becomes a product line, becomes a cottage industry, that sort of thing. There's a circulating atmosphere, right? A forum for interaction. We could talk about a forum for interaction, right? In fact, maybe I should have used that term instead, but I wanted to get thinking about sort of certain other things here. But a forum for interaction, a circulating atmosphere. There's an attraction to shared information that's operant, right? People, elements, matter, animals are attracted to other animals that share their information, or opposed to it in a certain way. Density, putting them together, sort of increasing the likelihood that interactions will occur. And new combinations. We're looking for new combinations to be output, to be produced. Okay. Does this happen in space? Circulating atmosphere, and there's attraction to similar sorts of agents of energy, and then density increases and new combinations occur. Does that happen? Are you thinking about anything in space? You didn't mention this, but Maddie, what you thinking about?
I was just thinking of like, I don't know like the right term for it, but like meteoroids, meteorites, whatever it's called, like when they come together, like certain stuff has to be like perfect, like the Goldilocks conditions, like certain stuff has to happen for all of those elements to come together.
For those particular things to come together at that particular time, I mean that kind of thing, yeah, that does have to be perfect. But you might get an inevitable sort of accumulation of meteors and matter in a solar system, perhaps. It's going around the sun. And if you have something there that is keeping things in, they'll circulate and accrue, and you'll get, he's not relaxing, is he? What you doing there? You eating off the carpet there? Sorry. But the idea is that the density increases and makes a sun, it makes a star eventually. And at the center of suns, the center of stars, new chemical elements are created. Oh no. There, Riley. Let's not chew on that. No. We'll get to the dog stuff in this lecture soon. You'll love it. In culture, in cities and towns, when people come together, they invent things, they do things, they create things that they find a market for in that city, but wouldn't otherwise. The Makers Fair, for example, things like that. Farmers Market. The art scene in any big city. In language, the agents of of meanings, of idiolects, right? We're all carrying around our idiolects, and the more density that we have together, the more likelihood that we'll hit on things that's just right, that we really like that, and we like the way that they use that word fresh, or dope, or something like that, and it gets taken up. In science, if we think about where innovations happen, it's where there's high degrees of interaction among those agents of that knowledge, that energy, scientists at conventions, but it often happens at graduate schools where you have large graduate programs, large research universities. There's a lot of contact there. But it can also be at conventions and times where we're specifically oriented towards bringing people in. In ecosystems. What kinds of ecosystems, for those of you who are in biological sciences, what kind of ecosystems do you recall are the most creative, or creating the most diversity of species? Do you know? What ecosystems have the most diversity of species? Yeah, we can go plant-based. Stick to plants. Stick to plants. Well, actually, yeah. If we're going to go to the microbial level, I really don't know. But I know for plants, right, there are these parts of the world where there's an incredible amount of diversity in plants, right, in rainforests, basically. And that might be something about that circulating atmosphere that creates density and a circulation which makes new combinations possible. It's much more diverse plant life in rainforests than in other areas. Now, where's the second law in this? Well, you know what it is, where increasing entropy happens. Energy dissipates. Right? For all of those things, there's, well, death and decay, certainly in ecosystems. In space, stars die. Eventually that heat will get used up, the matter will get used up. You'll have energy dissipation there too. But in general, this third one is the cultural level, the one that we're sensitive to, where we're bored. It's not new anymore. That the newness has faded for things that are cultural, for meanings. And so that goes for science as well. There are findings that lose their power because they've been cited a lot. There's nothing new there. They're classic foundations, and we add to them. But it can fade with its sense of importance because it's not cutting edge. It's not something that's earth-shaking. And in culture. Okay. So I'm going to take us through some diagrams now. On picking up from last time to pursue this certain model. Yeah. Hey, don't do that. No. You can't do that. No. Don't do that. No, Ronald. That's not for you. No good. No. Just sit there. What happened to how you always used to take naps in the house? You're just taking naps all the time. What is it? Why aren't you taking a nap? We're learning about dogs. Okay. Okay, in the last diagram from the last class, remember this, I was sketching sort of how things become concentrated at the center. And the people that know the language, that know the dialect, that know that information, are at the center. Those that don't know it as much are at the periphery or the medial sort of rings. Okay, so we're going to talk about how things get sort of concentrated like that. And don't let them chew on your boot or anything. Now, in that framework, who's got the newness? Who's got sort of the sensitivity to what's new and different? It would be the people at the fringe. It would be young people. It would be people not laden with a lot of resources and commitments. They might also be the most flexible and the most sort of nimble at making connections to introducing what's new from the outside into the inside. I'm thinking about political refugees in this case, and I've got an interest in connecting to that through this next model. So this diagram that you're going to see, which is very heavy, how's it going? Okay. It's got a lot of stuff in it, and I'm finishing up on it now. Sneezing. I'm going to apply to different sorts of hierarchies where we have mediators. We've got mediating agents to the center where they're more conservative, more laden down. They've got a lot at stake. A lot of resources there. They move slower, right? They're bigger bodies than the faster, nimble people on the outside. Again, that's consistent with West's finding, okay? And yeah, I think we might want to pause and note here, right? Before we leave West, you might want to go back up to where West is in your notes and note. The larger the system, the slower the metabolism. Right? The larger the system, the slower the metabolism, biologically speaking. The larger the social system, or the denser the social system, the denser the social system, the faster the circulation of agents. So the faster they walk, the faster the circulation of agents. The denser the social system, the faster the circulation of agents. Okay. And it may be that has to do with scale, the relative scale to the overall system. So there are parts of an elephant, even though the overall metabolism is slower, that are much smaller, and that's what moves quickly. Okay. The importance of network position for nonlinearity. So what I'm showing through this diagram, we've already got this sort of in our notes, or this, and you've already seen most of this, where I'm starting out with an inner core, I've got a medial ring, and I've got an outer ring. And I'm saying at that central position, if you're central, you got a lot of resources, a lot of stuff coming at you, a lot of shared information coming at you. You've got a lot of access to shared information, but not to novelty. Now, because of informational momentum, if you have a lot of shared information coming at you, you only need a little bit of novelty to keep you going. And the sensitivity to initial conditions falls into that too, that same sort of predicament. Medial positions are valuable for brokering exchanges between central and peripheral positions. And then peripheral positions have less shared information, more diversity though, and more opportunities for novelty. Okay? Each position in a network has its own sort of valuation of resources. And that includes sort of your different positions where you are in this. It's not just circular, it's not just symmetrical. The world is not symmetrical in this sense. It doesn't have to be. But it's why networks are scale-free and nonlinear. So at times you'll get things popping up, and they can keep going and going, depending on the resources that they get. It's an asymmetrical contact with other agents at the periphery, so some peripheries might have more contact with other communities or other sorts of things going on in its environment, and so you'll get things growing in asymmetrical ways. So these are different sorts of communities that you've got. I'm showing how that's a very significant one, that's less so, this is less so. And this means multidimensional qualitative differences will emerge. So qualitatively different, it's not just quantitatively different. It's like this side is different from this side. So you get unique, nonlinear, emergent. Green language will be based more on the orange language than would be the blue or the red ones. So your community's language, your dialect, will be more like some other dialects than others. And that could be not just because of the population, but because of the power of that language, that community. Okay, just a rough sort of theoretical sketch for where I'm going with this, and I want to sort of show you the importance of these gradations for exposure to the outside. Okay, so I took out that other line, but kept these sort of because they're pretty and because they remind us of sort of what we're talking about. So now I'm working in reverse. I'm working from the outside here, moving into the inside, and how we process information this way. So processing information helps create certain meanings that are foundational, and we're more confident in them. So patterns and perceptions and what you're perceiving might lead you to conducting some studies on that, some survey data, and you have findings on that survey data. And then you create models using those variables to look at the world. And so there's a reliable set of sort of beliefs about the world because of that data that you inferred from patterns in the outside world. And this is more fluid and flexible. This is a little bit more rigid, and these models are very rigid. Very sort of hard and more permanent. And robust, depending on sort of the support that they get, and as it increases over time with frequency. Okay. Same thing now, but I'm going to be sort of repeating this sort of thing. These are abstract at this level, but it'll be getting more concrete. Quantitative variation, where you just sense differences, higher and lower. And then you begin to see the bumps there, where they're more frequent. So at that range, there's a lot of observations, nothing in there, and then more up at this range, and then not as much there, it fades, and then there's more up there, and those become modes of distributions, and then you end up with categories. So you go from just general variation to seeing modes to seeing categories. And the categories tend to be more obdurate. When we're talking about, hey, don't you, so we see general difference, then we begin to notice clumps or lumps, if you will, and then we say, yeah, we're going to call that this, we're going to call that that, and that's where we end up with categories, more obdurate. Okay? And these help us, like you guys talked about, quite well, most of you in your exams, you talked about how having those categories, having words, for example, helps you process information about what the words are about, right? Having a language helps you process information. Okay. Oh, I'm going in reverse order here. Many different idiolects. As they overlap, we come up with different dialects. As they overlap, we come up with a more rigid sort of language, a sense of what a language is. Even though it's a construct, and as we've already talked about, there is no language that everybody shares. Nobody really knows, other than sort of construct it through their techniques, and they could do it statistically, they could do it with some of those other means that I've talked about, what the language means. But we know, personally, we have idiolects that are changing every day for all of us. Right? Okay. Humans are based sort of on primate information. We've descended from primates, and they relate to mammals. So there's a more sort of precise, a more sort of obdurate sort of sense of what human beings are with that as well. But let me go to humans, dogs. Riley's perking up his ears right now, I'm sure, to say that. Dogs, Riley, dogs. And how dogs have evolved and where they, is he chewing again? Is he eating something? No. Don't go in there. No. Those treats are not for you. Not for you. Okay, so dogs actually, one of the reasons that I don't know, that I'm excited to have a dog instead of a cat. Okay, I've got a couple cats. They're beautiful. I love them. They're so clean. They're beautiful. Sorry, did you get a kiss there, Morgan?
Okay.
Is because you can tell them to get down. Is because, have you noticed their eye contact? Right, cats don't look at you the same way, do they? Right? Dogs look you right in the eye, patiently. Right? They're not threatened. I suppose some dogs might be, but by and large, dogs are not. And there is the idea that this is how dogs evolved, because we can look at them, and they can look at us, and they don't get freaked out, they're not threatened, and we can basically tell them to wait, to stay there, to wait. And so if you imagine human beings out there, right, hunting and gathering, right? We're in the hunter-gatherer stage that we were for hundreds of thousands of years, and we're cooking food. Okay? Or even we're not even cooking it yet, right? This could have happened, I suppose, before then. We've got game, right? We've completed a hunt. And animals can smell the blood all around, and if you're cooking the meat, oh, they can smell it for a long way, right? And dogs' senses of smell are better than ours. So that would be a good ally to have, right? Somebody who can alert you to who's coming on the periphery. And they might alert you by warning the animals that are coming on the periphery that, no, you stay away, this is mine. He said wait, I made friends with this guy, I'm waiting, you stay away. Not saying all that, of course, but you know, get away, this is mine, or at least it will be at some point, right? I know these guys leave it eventually, but you get away. So they'll start barking right away, warning off and warning us there over the carcass or whatever we're eating that threats are coming. And so they become watchdogs, right? They become alarms, right? And maybe sort of sentries scaring off other animals and so on, chasing them off. And dogs are different. They're bred differently, and they've done experiments that dogs are different from just wolves. Wolves do not look at you before they go in at the food that they've been offered, as much as dogs. Dogs will check, is that okay? And then go in. Wolves will not. So that they've been bred, dogs have been bred to have that eye contact and to check with you. Oops. Yeah. Oh, it's on this computer. Okay. I think we were getting crank calls, or at least virus calls or robo calls on the Skype the other day during one of our classes. I answered one of them the other day, and it was a female voice telling me to do something. So, yeah, I'm glad I didn't do it during Dr. Davis's talk the other day.
Huh?
Huh?
One of those 1-800 names.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know. Anyway, here's another way in which dogs buffer us from our environment. This is a layer of our complexity, of our own sort of environment around us. Our microbial diversity, right? It's good to have microbial diversity, right? Which is why we should leave the antibiotic hand sanitizer on the shelf. Don't use that. You want microbial diversity, biotic diversity, microbiotic diversity as a part of you. And if you have a dog, right, so Morgan was just kissed by Riley there, and so she'll have maybe even a little bit more microbial diversity than she had because she already has a dog, right? And that microbial diversity is positively correlated, and in a causal way they've got figured out how this works, immune system, that sort of system, it'll help her from getting a cold. It'll help me from getting a cold. I'll get fewer colds now. I've got a likelihood of getting fewer colds now because I have a dog. And Celia Sobelman, remember Celia, who graduated last year? Her poster at the science fair or whatever it was, the research forum last spring. Any of you guys see it, what her poster was? She swabbed people's hands, just the back of their hand, here at Centenary. And she split them up into dog owners versus non-dog owners. And she looked at the microbial diversity, and lo and behold, as she expected, the dog owners had higher microbial diversity, significantly higher microbial diversity. Which would mean, given this thesis that's been well established, they'll get sick less often. Right? So they buffer you against the local environment's microbial diversity. There's all sorts of examples of this type of thing. For example, mouthwash has been correlated with, using mouthwash has been correlated with mouth cancer. You're not supposed to use mouthwash. You guys know that? Yeah, I know you don't know that. The hair and all of you. No. But you're not supposed to use mouthwash that often because it's correlated with mouth cancer. And I think it's because it wipes out a lot of those mediating microbial environments. Okay? How you doing? How's Riley doing? You doing okay? Okay. Okay, here's some more. I'd like to go backwards on this. Okay. So, y'all heard the news today? There's news today. Couple different things. Huh? Couple different things came up in the news today, this morning. There's a minor league professional soccer team that's coming to Shreveport. They're going to be called the Raptors, and presumably it's because they're connected to some other MLS, Major League Soccer team called the Raptors. I don't know if they're based in Portland or wherever they're based, but they'll compete against other teams in this region, in Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, I guess. Now, the more you can make something meaningful to people, right? We've talked about this, and something meaningful to people, the more they'll be able to process and understand, the more they'll want to process and understand iterations of it. So the more you tell people about what the patterns in soccer are, or the patterns in that soccer team are, and you create, say, you do interviews and reports on that soccer team, and then you publish them, it's like raising a pyramid, or a sort of a tower, if you will, that's more visible to people, and they'll come to it, they'll see it as a source of energy, and they'll be more fluent in processing the information about that soccer team. So I'm daydreaming to myself that maybe I can get my son interested in doing some of this stuff and making like a fan club page for the Shreveport Raptors or something like that, and it would create interest in the team, and it would help the team, and he might learn about processing information and about how processing information gives you power. Because man, it does. Anything that you guys do like that, if you put out a report or you blog on something, you will get feedback for it. Y'all know Renisha? Doesn't Renisha work in the business office? Isn't that Renisha who works in the business office, right? She's got a blog, and she gets free stuff, man, all the time. She publishes it, puts it out there, and there's feedback to it.
It's chewing on the step.
Is he chewing on something?
Yeah.
Hey, Riley, don't chew on that, okay? Let's not destroy the classroom while you're here, okay? Just a little bit more time, okay? Should have brought him a bone, shouldn't I? He's got some bones. Hey, Riley, no. Don't do that, okay? Okay. Riley. No.
Okay, that's good. You're good. It's okay.
All right, where were we?
You're eating my couch, but that's fine.
No, Riley, no. Don't want to do that. Please, I don't want to discipline you in public. Okay, so here's the latest sort of thing in the news, okay? Refugees in Europe, of course, right? There's thousands of them. struggling to find a home in Europe. And people are sympathetic. No, Riley, don't go over there. Thank you very much. Okay. They're struggling to find a home. People in those home countries, countries with, who might take them, are sympathetic. They're saying these people deserve a home. It's our foreign policy often that has caused wars in these places. These people are fleeing for their lives. I mean, their homes were being bombed. And a lot of them have said, hey, I would be a citizen host. I would host a refugee, a family of refugees in my home. They can come live in my home. I've got space. I got an extra bedroom or something. I know how these people are living right now, right? And then I could show them the ropes, right? I could get them assimilated into this culture, right? I could be that mediator. We all sense that this is how it works in society and socialization, and people become acculturated, people become fully socialized, best in that way, with those smaller, more nimble moving agents, right? If you're going to leave it to some sort of central government agency to make rules, and okay, we're going to make this camp for you, we're going to send you to these schools, we're going to give you this apartment block over there, it's not really going to work as well as, hey, come on, you live with us, live in our home, we'll socialize you. Right? Any of you ever lived in another country, like at a homestay sort of thing? Yeah, Z, did you do that? Where'd you go?
I've done it in Australia, and I've done it in Martinique.
Wow, cool. And did you feel like you got to know Australian culture and Martinican culture? How long were you there?
Australia was like a month, and Martinique, I was there until I was like 6.
Wow, so the first 6 years of your life. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, that's a common technique for really understanding a culture. My daughter just came back from Ecuador. She was there for a semester. She feels Ecuadorian a little bit now, because of that. Okay, so I promised we'd get to the model. Let's get to the model. Yeah, you've seen this. That's right. You've seen that. I know you're going in, you're going out. It's sort of related to that. Here's what I'm getting at, that your attraction to shared information concentrates agents, right? It gets them in there. They're circulating more tightly. That might be the limit at where it happens, and then they're dispersing. This might be the saturation point for that sort of system. So it's the average number of people in a community, maybe, or people in a conversation. It tends to be 7. After 7, it fractures, and you tend to have different conversations. Pages in a novel, minutes in a movie. Maybe there's some sort of average, because after that point, they can't take in any more information. It needs to sort of end. Notes in a chord, or something like that, which is between 3 and 5. And it goes on. Okay, so how might we model the emergence of order? Modeling the process in sociology has been done before. People are working on it increasingly now, because computers allow us to have a whole lot of simulated interactions. I mean, a whole lot of them, like hundreds and hundreds and thousands of them. So you see order accruing. Right? Remember how a lot of this stuff wasn't discovered until when? When was sort of the deterministic chaos discovered, or sensitivity to initial conditions? When was the butterfly effect discovered? About what time in history? Was this like the 1800s? No, it wasn't 1800s. When was it about? Yeah, and that means, what does that mean?
Like caveman era?
No, actually it was the other way, right? Yeah. In terms of chaos, deterministic chaos, and Lorentz and the strange attractor, and hurricanes and stuff, how hurricanes can arise. It's with computers. They needed computers to simulate many, many observations, and it changes after a while, right? How's he doing? He's doing okay. He's not gnawing. Okay, good. Here's a book by Epstein and Axtell. They're sort of big guns in the early sort of modeling of social interactions, and they're trying to create social order based on very sort of simple social rules of interaction. So they created stuff like this, where they start off just mingling around, and then they begin to coalesce and sort themselves out on those corners, and there they are, and then they start to mingle again, and it sort of breaks off, like entropy. Although their instructions were much more specific than the vague sort of share information, dissipate if you're not getting any new information, which is where Godrich and I have tried to go, a more general framework. Here's another one where it starts off sort of randomized. It begins to separate and become highly segregated there. Right? So my book, Explaining Culture, I talk about how as we interact with others, our shared understandings emerge. I mean, that's a part of our interaction, is developing understandings. And we develop social networks based on the similarities of our understandings, similar to what Jeffrey West was talking about with networks in his talk. And so language comes out of that. Stories are a part of that. We tell stories to reaffirm our understandings, the 4th of July and the Remember the Alamo and all that stuff. Nicknames and understandings for what something means. If you know what that means, if you know what dope means or something, then you're part of that culture, you're part of that group. Inside jokes likewise, and that's all culture, those shared understandings. If you get it, you can hang with those people. Sorry. If you don't, you can't. So you're discriminating against people. That's that point where you're coming in and you're saying, no, if you don't get it, no, we'd rather be alone here. This is just us, okay? People that understand this. You exclude people from it. Okay. I'm jamming here. So it's a theory of complexity as information processing, what I worked with Godrich to develop, and sort of refining those basic rules. And you're getting, of course, a lot of it in this course, but I'm going to show you how it's modeled. You're modeling a theory. When you're modeling a theory, it should produce patterns similar to the phenomenon you've got a theory of. Right? So your model should produce that. All we're looking for is for sort of people to become different, sort of to go into different groups based on sort of shared information. But then they keep exchanging information and they might develop new groups. And you might develop orders. That would be the ideal if you have sort of that peripheral group, the medial group, and then this core group, the central group. So we'd be looking to produce that. Computer simulations allow us to create a lot of those observations, and after a while you would see the emergence of order. So it can take a little while. It's an agent-based model of social organization, and what we're doing is programming agents to find information, new information. They want novelty, but to process it through their own understandings. And I'll show you basically how we model that, how we sort of simulate that. Okay, that's what they look like at the beginning of a model. They're randomly dispersed, of randomly different sizes, and each one of these things is something that it's possible to know something about. They don't all know about that. This is the most commonly known thing, issue, right? That's maybe second, right? That's maybe one of the least known issues. And they're looking for people that know about something that they know about, but also have something new, that know about an issue that they don't know about. Here are the issues. There's an example of issue ratings. We actually have 20 issues, 20 possible issues that an agent can know about. And this is how they feel about it, or this is their rating of it. This is what they think about it. You could say degree of bad versus good, or hot versus cold, or Osgood has 3 dimensions for all things. It's evaluation, potency, strong versus weak, and activity, fast versus slow. So you see agent O and agent A, alter and other could be, are different there. They both know about this though, 1 and 2. So they would want to interact with each other to some degree. But issues vary in their meaningfulness, as I've pointed out to you guys repeatedly. And so here's how we'd operationalize meaningfulness. MI, right? MI is the meaningfulness of one issue, okay? maybe issue 1, maybe it's issue 8, whatever. So if it's issue 8, for example, well, the frequency that you've encountered issue 8 times the consistency, the stability of meeting issue 8 times the impact of issue 8. How many other people know about issue 8? And so that's the frequency, that's the stability of those ratings across encounters, and that's the social impact of that issue. So we're getting at all 3 variables that I've been writing about for a long time in my research in this model. So here's where issues are equally meaningful. Here's where they're not, where they're weighted by meaningfulness. So say, oh no, I've encountered issue number 2 a lot. I feel strongly about my rating of 2. Or I've encountered issue 5 a fair amount. I'm pretty confident in issue that should be rated as a 6. I feel 6 about that. I'm pretty sure because I've met it a lot. Not that sure about this one. Or Agent O is really unsure about this one. So Agent O is going to believe Agent A a lot. Oh, you're that confident on issue number 2? Okay, all right, okay. I've only met it once, and I thought 7. So that's how we often interact based on that sense. So they start like this, and let me show you here. I think I've got it here. Oh no, sorry, it's on the other computer here. What it looks like as it's running. Okay, so there it is. That's after it's been running for a while. And you see clumps there and there. You see a class of large agents that have grown and grown and grown. The smaller ones are moving around. This has been running for the length of the class, so this has been running for an hour. And you've got a few medium-sized ones. We do tend to have 3 classes. We've got large, medium, and small. Not very many of the medium. And it looks like as we're running it, it tends to cluster into 2 groups. You see how a lot of the issues have increased. When I do refresh here, you'll see it start at the beginning, and you'll see how the knowledge of issues should go down. You'll see it come up. Should anyway. There, you see? And now they're starting to increase in their knowledge of issues. Now, there's something else that happens here. I'll show you. This is our most recent model, but we went through some struggles to get there. In early versions, everyone would get big and slow. And we made it so that, reflecting Jeffrey West's thing again, partly, though not intentionally, the bigger you go, the slower you move. It's expenditure of more resources at that point, proportionally, to do that. Then we remembered entropy, which is that stuff fades, stuff dies. You forget stuff, right? You do. And so we had people forget things. We had them forget issues, literally drop them there as they go. And those are those sort of colorful squares that you saw being dropped by people who referred to them as droppings. And then recently, we varied the recycling capacity. So agents who are small and nimble, they can recycle those little issues. If you're bigger, though, you have to give it more time. You have to let that ferment before you can digest that. Informational momentum, remember, right? The more information you have, the more sensitive you are, right? Your digestive system is sensitive, right? He can eat more stuff, more diversity of stuff, I would bet, right? And certainly, a lot of the microbes can, than I can, and that y'all can, right? We've got more sort of specialized diets. Attractiveness depends on meaningfulness, and so we wanted our agents to be more attractive to the bigger agents, right, who know a lot of stuff. And interactions increase your similarity. So even on issues you already know about, you're going to listen and be influenced by the ratings on the issues that the other person knows about. You're going to be influenced by what they feel about things, even if you've encountered it before. So we made those, and this is sort of a typical order that we end up with. You can see it's sort of either little guys or big people, some medium, but it tends to be sort of bimodal. But we are getting some diversity. Here's the little droppings, right? Those issues waiting to be picked up, the little poop piles, as it were. Don't encourage it, though. Yeah. So our goal is to see patterns of interactions between groups of agents, and we are seeing that. We can go back, by the way, we can get information, quantitative information on these guys, so we can track what are the variables that determine whether you get big or small, what's your sort of sequence of interactions like. So we want to see structural properties emerge. Right? We want to see order emerge based on principles of energy and entropy, and energy being processed in this way. That's sort of our vision of it, and that motivate agents to interact. So that's how we're sort of seeing it. And what we hope to see is maybe something like this, where we can track over time how, if you're somebody that's part of the main group, well, actually, and you're visiting the other group, you might be more prone to novelty. But what we're really hoping to see is something like this. If you spin way out of orbit, as it were, if you become very different, you need to reintegrate yourself before you can make it into the big group by interacting with a smaller group. Right? So we would be able to track that because of the information that you're bringing in. Your information is so unusual. It can't be assimilated right away into the main colony. Yeah, and so hopes for complexity studies in social science is when to mix with other people. Oh, I'm looking for diversity. I want to meet a lot of different people. And when to match. Oh, I need to be just with my people. No, I need to be with people that really get me. That really get me. Heterogeneity versus homogeneity. When do we need those things? And what keeps us healthy and secure? What's good for us in the long run? It's not good to be overly homogeneous, right? And it's not necessarily good, though, to be overly diverse. So psychologically, socially, politically, and how interaction forums matter for that. Texting, eBay, YouTube, all that stuff. That's what we do. Okay, so that's the model. You guys have your article already assigned, right? Music at the Edge. I sent that out. So that's for next time. And we'll now hand back the exams.